In May 1965, Dr. King spoke in Colton Auditorium at Queens College about the need for greater educational access.
The problem is becoming even more critical today because of a lack of educational opportunities, because of discrimination, because of a denial of apprenticeship training. We as a people have been limited by and large to unskilled and semi-skilled labor, not because we didn't have the ability to do the job, but because opportunities denied us the training necessary to do them.
Here in New York State, Governor Nelson Rockefeller and the state legislature were negotiating the budget in Albany during the winter of 1966. CUNY officials, well aware of campus protests connected with civil rights struggles, began working with Black and Puerto Rican legislators to craft a new university program.
We wanted to create a program so that the injured of our society could occupy positions of power. The term "seek" came out of that.
We decided to set up a program under which we would have criteria that would enable these young people to be admitted to the city university.
Education gives people the tools with which to compete in the marketplace. Without it, you're walking around with a real handicap. With it, you have a chance to compete.
Much is made of the so-called midnight march. We met with Tony Travia.
We explained to him that there would be the inability for him to be re-elected speaker if our votes were not available. That night, the SEEK program was born.
On July 5th, 1966, the Search for Education, Elevation, and Knowledge program, known as SEEK, was signed into law.
Hello, I'm Sheryl McCarthy. Welcome to One to One. During his first year in office, the Trump administration has waged an attack on programs and institutions promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion. It has withheld or threatened to withhold federal funds from colleges and universities and make special efforts to admit and support students who otherwise might not be able to attend. So far, untouched by Trump's campaign is the CUNY Percy Ellis Sutton SEEK program. For 60 years, it has provided academic, financial, and counseling support to economically disadvantaged first-time college students, many of them students of color, to help them earn a college degree. Here to tell us about the history of the SEEK program and its prospects in the age of Trump are Michel Hodge, University Dean for Special Programs, Jay Hershenson, Vice President for Communications and Marketing of Queens College, and Fatimah Basir, a SEEK program graduate and book author. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Jay, you've been at CUNY a long time. Why don't you tell us what was going on back in 1966 that led to the creation of the SEEK program?
The nation in 1966 was really in the midst of a pivotal year in the civil rights movement. The March Against Fear was going on in Mississippi, where thousands upon thousands of African Americans and their allies did a march against fear in order to register more people to vote. Stokely Carmichael announced the creation of the Black Power movement. In another part of the country in California, the Black Panther Party began. And Dr. Martin Luther King, he was in Chicago fighting against desegregation and making a big, big issue of how desegregation needed to be done in the housing world. Here in New York, in Albany, Governor Nelson Rockefeller was in charge of the executive office, and the legislature was debating the budget. At that time, there was talk, because of what was happening on a national level, about the importance of getting more underrepresented constituencies, student constituencies, into colleges and universities. Well, the legislature was a big place, but there were 13 African-American legislators, and within that group of 13, one Puerto Rican legislator. And they got together during the state budget deliberations under the leadership of Percy Ellis Sutton, who was an assemblyman. And he was joined by David Dinkins, who was in the Assembly, of course, the former mayor, Basil Patterson, the former deputy mayor and state senator, Shirley Chisholm, the former Assembly member, not only as a member of Congress, and, interestingly enough, J. William Thompson, the father of Bill Thompson, who's the current chair of the CUNY Board of Trustees. His dad was a senator in Albany, and the other members that got together and said, we are going to do a march to the offices of Assembly Speaker Anthony Travia, and we're going to make it crystal clear that when the state budget is adopted, if he wants our votes, we have to have a Sikh program. And that's how Sikh was born. It was the founders, the original founders, working with CUNY officials, who were very, very supportive, that created the basis for a Sikh program to reach out to economically disadvantaged students and educationally disadvantaged students to give them a chance at college.
What does Sikh stand for? Tell us what Sikh stands for.
Sikh stands for Search for Education, Elevation, and Knowledge. And within that rubric, the students get access to mentoring and counseling and all kinds of supportive services that I'm sure others on the panel will talk about. You can only reach your potential if you receive the support that, frankly, when people are born into a wealthy household, they receive it from their parents or other family members. But if you're making $27,000 a year or $37,000 a year, as many of the Sikh families were at that time, you need the support so that your potential can be realized.
Now, it was interesting to me that Sikh, I just recently learned, we had a show about the 1969 Black and Latino student protest at City College. They were also advocating for, more, that you had this college in the middle of Harlem that had very few Black and Latino students. So they were advocating for the same thing. And in '68, you had the demonstration at many colleges about Black studies and more diverse enrollment and the Vietnam War. But the Sikh program predated those. So apparently the legislators, the state legislators, were thinking about this as an issue that might, not only was it good to move in a different direction, but this might explode a few years later, which it did explode in 1968 and 69. What did CUNY look like in 1966 as opposed to how it looks today?
In 1966, there were 5 senior colleges. And at the time, we're talking about City College, Baruch College, Hunter College, Brooklyn College, and Queens College. By the way, York College had been approved in 1966, but didn't open until 1967.
Okay.
And so that compares to today. There are 11 senior colleges, just so your viewers can get a sense of what was going on. But what really motivated the legislators was the fact that less than 1 out of 10 students at the 5 senior colleges at the time were either Black or Puerto Rican. And that motivated them enormously because over 4 out of 10 students in the New York City public school system were either Black or Puerto Rican.
Right.
So there was a disconnect. And sure, they were able to get a piece of the puzzle solved through the Sikh program. The demonstrations and the rallies that occurred later on, which were in many ways a continuation of the civil rights movement, led to the birth of open admissions at CUNY. But Sikh predated open admissions. Sikh was the responsibility and the great advantage that the state of New York provided because of those 13 great legislators.
I'm interested in what was the connection, because there was Sikh, there was student demonstration, which led to open enrollment. Open enrollment came, open enrollment went, but Sikh still remains. And I'm just wondering, what was the connection between Sikh and open enrollment? Open enrollment was when any student, graduate of public school in New York City, was guaranteed a place at one of the CUNY colleges, maybe senior, maybe 2-year. But how did it work with the Sikh program? I'm just interested.
Well, if you're asking me from my own experience, I would just say very briefly that the SEEK program from the beginning had the proper counseling, mentoring, support services, and financial aid. I think it's fair to say now, looking back, that open admissions did not have the level of support, the level of counseling, the relationships with the public school system. SEEK was a much more targeted, effective concept and program, and that really was a large part of the difference. And then, of course, when the fiscal crisis hit during the 70s, the open admissions program began to really falter.
Yeah. So, Michel, open admissions came and went, but SEEK remains. Tell me about the SEEK program today and how I assume it has evolved somewhat over the years. Tell me about it.
So, SEEK, we like to say SEEK works in the community of the SEEK schools. And it's not that we've changed who we are, but we've adapted to today. So the core pieces are still there, the support that comes through the counseling for students. They're dealing with different issues today than they were in the 60s. The financial help is still there to help them with books, and these days it's tech and things like that students need instead of a stack of books. But essentially the program is there to meet the needs of whatever generation of students are coming through the system.
Do all SEEK students get basically free tuition? Is it tuition free for all SEEK students?
Virtually. It's virtually free for many. They, of course, have their regular financial aid that they are eligible for. And then the SEEK funds come in and fill the gaps. So, for instance, there's a transportation stipend. Students probably wouldn't ordinarily be able to take advantage of some of the big things like study abroad that are very expensive. SEEK funds can go in there and help students make sure that they get these same opportunities that any student would have.
What qualifies you for SEEK? And how do you get in? Do you seek or does SEEK seek you?
Yes, both. When students are applying to CUNY and to a senior college, often they will check off a box on their application that says that they're interested in the SEEK program. And how they know about that is usually because a counselor, and quite frankly, these days, because it started in the 60s, another family member has gone through SEEK and has attributed SEEK to their success, and they encourage the students to inquire about it. But we also, at many of the senior colleges, screen all the students that apply and look to see those who might not ordinarily be admitted just below the admission criteria or that are economically disadvantaged. And that's how we recruit the students for the next cohort.
So how many students are in the SEEK program now, and how many have been through it over time?
Yeah. On average, we have about 9,000 students over the life of the program a year, 9,000 a year. So we've served well over 100,000
over time. Does SEEK have? I believe at one time, I was telling Jay that when I got out of I was telling you that when I got out of grad school, I and a college mate applied for teaching jobs in the SEEK program. She got one, I didn't. It's turned out all right, but she was there for many years. Is there a separate faculty for SEEK, or is it?
So depending on the college, some of the colleges have faculty that are dedicated to SEEK and are run by what's called tenure track sort of faculty. These days, most of the operation is operated by management type directors. We call them higher education officers. And they are the directors at most of the units these days. And most of the staff, because they have a mental health or social work or some other background in order to be a counselor, are also higher education officers. But we do have mixes where there are some that have faculty and these HEOs. We have some that are all faculty and some that are all HEOs. Really, the different colleges are able to tailor it to the population that they have, so that they make sure that they serve the students in a way that's going to help them succeed. I always like to hearken back to what Percy Sutton said, right? He said, opportunity, access without opportunity is not truly helping anybody.
Yeah.
We make sure that when the student gets access, the opportunity is there to make sure that that particular student in that cohort, in whatever particular era we're in over the 60 years, has the right people there to make sure that they are successful.
Now, I gather one thing that is unique to the SEEK program is the students must complete a summer preparation program. How long is that, and what do they do in it?
So summer bridge programs are, I just did a tour of all the colleges, and I was talking with students, and so many students say that summer bridge program, that's what set the tone for them in college. It prepares them for the first day of class. They are not a stranger to college life. They already know what's expected of them. They already know where to go and what to do. They often say they're the experts compared to some of their friends who are not in the program who started that time. But often those programs include English and math preparation for English and math college level, giving them sort of that, here's really the level of work that you need to be able to do, because they do the same work everybody else does. But at the same time, their counselors and their peers are there to say, we're here to support you because we know you can do it.
Yeah.
And that program does a lot of that.
To your point, it was the SEEK program that pioneered pre-freshman summer skills program in this country.
Okay.
It started with SEEK, and
Okay.
colleges all across the country replicated summer skills.
Jay, as you know, I taught at Queens College for a long time. My understanding is that, and Queens is a very diverse borough, and Queens is a very racially diverse college. My understanding was that the demographics of the students who were coming into the SEEK program has changed. It's not just, I don't know if it was, I guess it was predominantly Black and Latino in the beginning. I don't know if that has shifted a lot, but my sense is that it's had.
Well, when you say it was predominantly Black and Latino, you're correct, but it was predominantly Black and Puerto Rican.
Okay.
Today, the students who are Black include students from the Caribbean, or whose family comes from the Caribbean, or from Africa, or from Ethiopia, from all around the world. So there's a more diverse African-American constituency now in the SEEK program. And similarly, with Latino students.
Right.
Now you have students from the Dominican Republic, Ecuador. We see them at Queens College all the time. And in addition, this was not the case back in 1966. You have students who are Asian or Asian American. And then you have a group of students who are, they could be white and they could be interracial.
Yeah.
They don't all fit into the same boxes,
Right.
That society has created for them. There's a much more diverse SEEK constituency today.
Fatima, you were a SEEK student at York College. You graduated in 2017?
Yes, ma'am.
So tell us, we don't have a whole lot of time, but tell us about your SEEK story and also about your book.
Yes, so when I joined the SEEK program, I decided to go to York because I wanted to get out of Brooklyn. I felt like all of my friends were going to like the same schools, and I'm like, I want something new. Now, I'm not a morning person at all. So when I first started, I was taking morning classes, and I was late to a lot of them. And I will never forget Miss Tracy Ellis, shout out to her. She had a conversation with me, I want to say twice. It was like a couple of times. But, she made it clear. She was like, Fatima, if you don't get on top of this, these 4 years are going to just like slip right through. Like as soon as you blink, it'll be like it's time to now when you should be like going off, to just be like doing more. And the whole SEEK department themselves has such an integral part in like where my resilience and stamina came into play. So my time with Seek, I mean, it was amazing. Like it truly pushed me and helped me in thriving. So right now I am an author of a children's book named I'm a Big Fish, Not a Guppy. The book is in over 250 schools in New York, and we are currently in over 4 countries. So
Wow.
we are working, I've been working with the youth for 16 years. It's like every time I say that, I'm like, wow, like I've dedicated my life to the youth. So here we are, and we're moving, and we're just trying to excel now, just do more.
Your book is the story of Bee, Bubbles, and Scales, who are little fish in a pond who are trying to get through the channel to get to the ocean. And I can't help but think that their story is analogous to your story and to a lot of the stories of a lot of students who were in the SEEK program.
Yes, yes. I suffer with a speech impediment, and I don't really like to use that term, but it was something growing up. It was hard for me to even say my name. And so my mom, she said, you have to get a hold of this, or else, you know, she didn't know. And I would just come home and read. I had the Barbie dolls, the stuffed toys, and I would just read. And I've learned to accentuate my words and my mouth, because if not, I'll like stutter and stumble. So in life is gonna be full of roadblocks and high tides and high waves, and you have to continue to swim.
Michelle and Jay, do each of you have a favorite story about someone who went through the SEEK program and transformed them in some way?
I do, and I'm glad you asked me after Fatima's explanation of the book, because it just reminded me of how my favorite story about SEEK students are. So Hopeton Allen is the director of the SEEK program at York College, where Fatima graduated from. But there is another York student that peer mentored him into leadership there while he was there. His name is Jeffrey Apperton, and he's a fashion consultant. But I say it to say that the program always yields people like Fatima, who go back. Why they do what they do is to help somebody else. And a lot of times it happens two fish that are together. They think about these things, and the program gives them the support to go for their dreams.
To get to the ocean.
Yeah.
Right. Jay?
One of my heroes is Adriano Espaillat. And the reason why is because he came to this country from the Dominican Republic as a young man and went to school here and took a job part-time as a gas station attendant. And then he found his way to Queens College, where he enrolled as a SEEK student and then got a degree in political science, did a couple of other jobs, and then decided to run for the New York State Assembly. Then again for the New York State Senate, where he became the first Dominican American to serve in the state Senate. And today, he is a congressman of the United States of America. He was an undocumented student who found his way to the SEEK program. And of course, every day we find some example of him fighting for immigrants and migrants and others who are in need. And your analogy of the fish in the ocean makes me say that SEEK is a lifeline. That's what SEEK really is. It's a lifeline, especially given the economic situation that so many students get born into. They don't ask to get born into households that are not wealthy. They find themselves in circumstances where their families love them and they have great potential, but they just need a little support so they too can become a member of Congress of the United States of America.
Some big fish.
Big fish.
Some big fish. Some big fish.
Michelle, I alluded in my introduction to the fact that the Trump administration is coming after programs like yours at universities, colleges that try to give a leg up to people who aren't white, wealthy. Is the SEEK program in any danger of that or under any kind of threat?
You know, what's nice is that the results over the decades are indisputable. Students who can do the work but need some support are given access through this program. And through the years, as Jay has mentioned, the program has become more and more diverse. I love to describe it the way one of the provosts described it to me. It's CUNY's mission on steroids. And CUNY's mission is to serve New Yorkers. So we serve New Yorkers. And to this point, we've really received the highest level of support from the state, from our Board of Trustees, our Chancellor, to continue to stay on mission. And so right now, everything is pointing towards we are going to continue to do what we've done for 60 years. Students who have the ability to do the work but need some support because of circumstances, as Jay had alluded to, through no control of the student, haven't been able to realize their potential. We continue to seek those students out, and we've had wonderful results, and I think that's why we continue our mission unafraid.
Jay, what do you want to say?
In 1966, there were 13 Black and Puerto Rican legislators. Today, there are 39 members of the Black, Puerto Rican, Hispanic, and Asian caucus. So we have our protectors in Albany and their allies, many, many allies, and now we have a state law that specifically cites the SEEK program as pioneering, and the funding from the state of New York comes with the assumption that the SEEK program will remain.
So, Fatima, what message would you like to send to all of the little fish out there?
The message I would like to send to the little fish out there is stay resilient and stay humble, because you might be down today and up tomorrow, and you might be up today and down tomorrow. And anytime you get up, it's important to always extend your hand down to help someone that is down below you.
Well, 60 years, we've talked about, where you started and all of the things that the SEEK program has accomplished and that all of its graduates have accomplished. So congratulations as a graduate and as somebody who was there early on, and for somebody who is continuing to run it today. Unfortunately, we're out of time. I'd like to thank Michel Hodge, University Dean for Special Programs, Jay Hershenson, Vice President for Communications and Marketing of Queens College, and Fatimah Basir, graduate of the CUNY Percy Ellis Sutton SEEK program and book author, for joining me today. To learn about our upcoming shows, you can follow us on Instagram at 1-to-1 CUNY TV, and you can watch the show on the go by downloading the CUNY TV app. For 1-to-1 and CUNY TV, I'm Sheryl McCarthy.